Good afternoon and welcome to this press briefing. We have just had a very packed day this morning and afternoon in Chongqing. My colleague and I we have a very productive discussion with Vice Premier Ding Xuexiang and as well as our Chinese counterparts earlier at the 21st Joint Council for Bilateral Cooperation, JCBC, and related Joint Steering Council meetings, JSC meetings. We reaffirmed the long-standing partnership between Singapore and China, and this partnership has grown and deepened over the decades to become all-round, high-quality, and future-oriented partnership. A major focus was on how we can continue leveraging our 3 government-to-government projects to explore new areas of collaboration. In particular, on the occasion of the Chongqing Connectivity Initiative's 10th anniversary, we discussed how we can build on the CCI's core strengths of connectivity and services to new areas such as green growth, digital transformation, and supply chain resilience. Also to extend it to new markets such as Central Asia and bring on board new business and trade and logistic flows. Minister Josephine will shortly share more about CCI and the various collaboration. We also discussed how we can expand our bilateral collaboration in areas such as financial connectivity, education, science and tech collaboration, particularly in green technologies and health, food trade, as well as cultural and youth exchanges. Allow me to elaborate on the first 2, on the financial connectivity and education. Then I will invite my colleagues to share more about the others. First, let me start with the financial connectivity. I'm glad to announce that DBS has been appointed as the 2nd renminbi clearing bank in Singapore, and this will enhance our status as a leading offshore RMB clearing center. With the support of the China Securities Regulatory Commission, CSRC, MAS, and SGX will be extending the secondary listing framework for companies listed on Shenzhen Stock Exchange and the Shanghai Stock Exchange to secondary listing in Singapore. This will enable such corporates to access international capital and provide additional funding channels for regional business expansions. I'm also happy to note that the commencement of the over-the-counter bond market arrangement through Bank of China and DBS, which will allow designated banks in Singapore to provide institutional investors with access to selected fixed income products on the China Interbank bond market. This will further reinforce Singapore's role as a gateway for investors seeking Asian investment opportunities, and therefore strengthen our position as a fixed income and asset management hub. We are also launching a pilot for Singapore to use eCNY in China by the end of this year. This will make payment even more convenient for tourists visiting China. Together, these initiatives will deepen financial connectivity between Singapore and China, boost Singapore's status as a financial hub, and support our growth in trade, investment, and people-to-people linkages. On education exchanges, we announced a slew of partnerships between our universities. These collaborations include areas like advanced manufacturing, life sciences and health, and AI governance, which are aligned with Singapore's RIE 2030 priorities. Our students and researchers will be able to benefit from China's vibrant innovation ecosystem by having access to more joint education programs, joint laboratories, and joint education spaces. This will broaden their horizons and enhance their expertise. This year's JCBC caps off a fruitful year of Singapore-China relations as we commemorate the 35th anniversary of diplomatic relations. These include PM Lawrence Wong's visit as well as Premier Li Qiang's introductory visit to Singapore. Today's meetings reaffirm how Singapore and China remain committed to work together in the spirit of mutual trust and respect so that we can better navigate global uncertainties, open up new opportunities for our economies and businesses, and improve the lives of our people. I will now say a few words in Mandarin. 第21届新中双边合作联合委员会会议今早成功的举行，也圆满的结束了。会议务实高效，我们也取得了一系列实质的成果。我非常高兴能够再次与丁薛祥副总理进行会面。新中两国关系坚固，源远流长。双边在互利互惠的原则的基础上，推动了两国全方位、高质量、前瞻性的伙伴关系。双方高度的认同，有必要继续拓展和深化双边的合作，让两国的经济更加坚韧稳定，为两国的企业和人民谋求更多的福利。今早我们重点讨论了如何推进3项政府间双边合作项目，继续为两国的发展做出贡献。其中，中心重庆战略性互联互通项目在过去10年里取得了非常显著的进展。双方还就多领域达成新的合作共识，包括金融的互联互通、教育、涉及绿色科技和医疗等领域的科技创新合作、食品贸易以及文化和青年交流等。在金融合作方面，双方指定了第2家新加坡人民币业务清算行，这是星展银行，这将进一步巩固新加坡作为中国以外最大离岸人民币中心之一的地位。我们也将在年底之前试行，让新加坡人能够在中国使用数字人民币 ECNY， 让新加坡游客在中国消费变得更加轻松便利。我们也公布了一系列高校间的合作计划，新加坡的学生和研究员人员将有机会更深入地接触中国蓬勃发展的创新生态，参与更多的联合课程、联合实验室、联合孵化空间等，从中开阔视野，提升专业能力。当前国际形势复杂多变，但新中双方始终坚持聚焦互利共赢的合作，双方将继续以长期建立的互信为基础，推动双边合作取得更多实质的成果，继续造福两国的人民。Now I would like to invite Josephine to share more about CCI and the various projects related to CCI.
Oh, thank you, DPM Gan. Friends from the media, some of you would be aware that the Chongqing Connectivity Initiative is the 3rd bilateral cooperation project at the flagship level between Singapore and China. And when the project was first conceptualized, the idea was to find a way to support China's development priorities. And at the time, it was Western region development. And as a result, the whole concept was to enable businesses and people on both sides to benefit, whilst at the same time supporting Western region development. 4 pillars were identified, and I'm glad to say that there have been good progress in terms of policy innovation in all 4 areas. There have been other fact sheets and documents that have been provided to you, so I won't go into them in detail. I would just add that the very nature of the CCI construct enabled us to explore other emerging areas that turn out to be fruitful. For example, collaborations in education, collaborations in healthcare became also very interesting. The Raffles Medical Group, for example, set up a hospital here, and later this evening we are going to the healthcare city that Perennial Holdings is developing. The most significant achievement of the CCI has got to be the CCI International Land Sea Trade Corridor, the ILSTC. It has got strategic value in terms of linking up Western China with Southeast Asia through the important gateways of Chongqing and Singapore. And as a result, we have seen that there were very significant progress along the ILSTC. Now, this being the 10th anniversary of the CCI, it is timely for us to refresh the vision. And so, during the Joint Steering Council meeting, the document for the vision for cooperation of the CCI in the next phase was also agreed upon. It catered to important developments in the global environment where trade and investment trends have become much more constrained, much more difficult and challenging. At the same time, it responds to the important mega trends that both countries have to deal with, and which is digitalization and sustainability. The good thing is that CCI has a very flexible construct. It is intended to focus on modern connectivity and modern services. And so within the ambit of modern connectivity and modern services, we can define and identify what are the most responsive ways of dealing with the opportunities. And there are two that have been identified. First, in terms of strengthening region-to-region collaboration, the ILSTC will extend its reach to Central Asia. You saw also the launch of the train service that starts from Yuzhui Terminal. This is only the beginning. We hope that more of such services can be provided on a regular basis, and this is a joint commitment on the part of Singapore as well as Chongqing teams that are working on the CCI. At the same time, it is also very it is also very timely that we are launching this extension to Central Asia. You would recall that ASEAN and China have upgraded its free trade agreement to the 3.0 version. And so economic integration as a backdrop provides us with exciting imperatives in terms of advancing this development of the CCI ILSTC. Importantly, we would like to overlay the CCI ILSTC with a digital component, and so there was an agreement signed on digital CCI ILSTC as well. Finally, the other project that was agreed upon is the Joint Innovation Development Fund. When the JIDF was first started, we committed to set aside in total 40 million RMB to support innovation projects coming out of both Singapore and companies in Chongqing, companies in Singapore as well as companies in Chongqing. We will now grow the fund to 100 million RMB. It is a sizable expansion of the fund, and it reflects the kind of confidence that the leaders on both sides have in terms of joint projects between companies in Singapore as well as companies in Chongqing, working together to take good advantage of the opportunities that are emerging in various fields. So I will pause right there and let colleagues comment on other areas.
Thank you. I'll now invite Ling to talk about science and tech as well as energy.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Trust that everyone had lunch and a good break. I wanted to share with you that there are three very strategic pillars that we have achieved, and because of the long-standing partnership that we have between China and ourselves. So I'm going to focus these three areas. The first pillar on energy. Now, since the signing of the MOU on energy cooperation in 2023, we have been actively exchanging insights on key energy developments and also studying collaborations for the deployment of low-carbon energy solutions. You would have also read that NTU and the China's National Ocean Technology Center, they are also discussing research collaboration on marine energy. You could wonder, I mean, given the smallness of the seas around us, what do we have to offer? Well, in terms of the design of the wave technology, as well as the design of systems around it. They've got 3 research centers here located in China that we can collaborate with. And the plan is to take these design and we conceptualize and make it into a proof of concept we can actually sell to the whole world. Now, our officials have also visited cities including Beijing and Shanghai to explore clean energy and also grid collaborations with Chinese partners. And we certainly welcome China's participation in the development of the ASEAN power grid, which will require significant investments in new energy assets as well as the grid infrastructure. Then we moved on to the second pillar, which is the science and tech as well as innovation. Now, beyond energy, this year, Singapore's National Research Foundation, our NRF, and China's Ministry of Science and Technology, MOST, signed an MOU on strengthening cooperation in science, technology, and innovation. Through this MOU, we hope to reaffirm both countries' commitment to strengthening bilateral cooperation in the priority areas of health, clean energy, water, and environment. Then this year, in July, between NRF and MOST, we launched the 4th Singapore-China joint flagship grant call on the topic of health. And this is one of the priority areas that we've jointly identified. So under this pillar, we are focusing on pandemic preparedness as well as aging. So both sides under the grant call, we have increased the number of supported projects from 2 to 3 for the 4th flagship call. And we will both continue to promote science and technology innovation by supporting grant calls and joint research collaborations, thematic expert workshops, and people-to-people exchanges to enhance talent mobility and capability building. The last pillar is with Enterprise Singapore, Enterprise SG. Enterprise SG has also launched the co-innovation programs with Shanghai, Jiangsu, Zhejiang, as well as Shenzhen since 2020. And in the last 5 years, the CIP calls, this co-innovation program calls, have supported over 40 projects in the fields of green and sustainability, AI and technology, and biomedical sciences. So we're very optimistic. We look forward to further collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now call upon the Senior Minister of State, Zaqy Mohamad, to talk about collaboration in trade of food products.
Thank you, DPM. We've had a very good discussions and MOUs being signed with on this area of food trade, food safety, and food innovation. I think these 3 areas are gradually expanding with China, and JCBC has seen us, the growth of food trade beyond the JCBC has grown from strength to strength. So over the 2 years, from 2022 to 2024, we've seen about 36% growth of food exports from China into Singapore, for 1.1 billion in 2022 to $1.5 billion last year. In turn, Singapore's agriculture exports to China too has grown by significant bounds over 2 years, from 1.4 billion in 2022 to 1.9 billion over the same period. So we think this is a two-way street in terms of food growth, food trade growth, and there's certainly mutual interest for us to expand market access, not just from China to Singapore as a hub, but I think also for Singapore food manufacturers to expand into China and gain market access into various cities and provinces. This JCBC will be further expanded market access by concluding a new protocol on the export of processed meat products from Singapore to China. And that enables Singapore-based food processors and food manufacturers to export processed meat into China. At the same time, we also approved various import sources for meat products from Chongqing, Heilongjiang, as well as Hunan, and from China to Singapore. So these approvals support Singapore's overall strategy in terms of food resilience and giving us greater diversity of food imports, at the same time giving us more choice, and certainly, to give us greater supply of meats and processed meats to Singapore. And that, I think, gives the Singapore consumers more choice as well. Likewise, with greater exports market access, we hope that this also helps many of our local food manufacturers, processors, exporters to expand their businesses, grow, and also hopefully create good jobs in Singapore. On the food safety front, given the interest of both sides, I think when you talk about increased market access, wider range of products, I think food safety becomes very important, and we have got interest on both sides to expand our collaboration in this field. So with this JCBC, we've also expanded our MOU between SFA as well as the State Administration for Market Regulation in October this year. And in this new MOU, we also not just renewed it, but we also expanded cooperation into food testing methodologies, as well as food health interface products to include items such as foods with added traditional Chinese medicine materials. And on food innovation, I think that's another interesting area for us because China is pretty well known for this. We are working with China to enhance food innovation and leverage technology to enhance local food production. So during MSC's inaugural joint working group meeting with the Agriculture Corporation, with the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs, in July this year, we had good meetings to see how we can expand food collaboration or innovation in terms of seed production, technologies, as well as aqua farming techniques. So, and beyond that, we are also expanding collaboration with the Chinese Academy of Agricultural Sciences on indoor speed breeding of leafy vegetables. And these are common vegetables that Singaporeans eat too, and that I think hopefully helps build up our farming production in Singapore as well. So we are working on both. I think all are important, diversifying our food sources, growing our local produce, at the same time look at innovations in food safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Lastly, I invite SMS Ling to talk about cultural and youth exchanges. Ms. Low?
Thank you, DPM, and good afternoon to friends of the media. In 2023, 2.5 years ago, you remember that Singapore and China upgraded our bilateral ties to 全方位高质量的潜在性伙伴关系, all-round high-quality, future-oriented partnership. And we have since then, in the last 2.5 years, actually seen really a stronger momentum of our collaboration, not just expansion, but also deepening of the cooperation beyond economics, in arts and culture, in heritage and museum, in sports, not just MCCY, but Sports Singapore, as well as our NSA, and also youth exchange. Now, just very quickly, for example, for culture, NGS, National Gallery Singapore, brought Georgette Chen's exhibition to Hexiangning Art Museum in Shenzhen from 9th of August to 7th of December, was very well received. And this is under arrangement of what we call a reciprocal type of arrangement. And in fact, we look forward to the reciprocal traveling exhibition of Hexiangning to NGS next year. And not just NGS, but NHB have been working with the counterparts, not just with Beijing, Shanghai, but key provinces. For example, we have seen that in the last 2.5 years, in this area, the exchanges in arts and culture, heritage and museum has become more sustained, more wide-ranging, with collaboration extending beyond and across multiple cities, unfolding across extended period. You may be aware, Peranakan Museum exhibition was very well received. It traveled to 4 museums across 4 Chinese cities. And in the area of sports, this JCBC, 21st JCBC, we have worked with GASC, General Administration of Sports of China, and we signed several MOUs signifying closer partnership as well as exchanges with the Chinese at all levels. For example, MCCY, we signed the agreement with GASC, and this will go some way to strengthen our technical and professional cooperation between both parties to advance our shared goals in sports. For example, this particular agreement MOU will encourage our respective NSA, National Sports Association, to establish direct links. And we are happy to see that Wushu Zonghui, the Singapore Wushu Dragon and Lion Dance Federation, has already signed an agreement with a counterpart, and that is the Chinese Wushu Association, covering enhanced exchanges in training. You know, they got very high standard. So it is always good to foster collaboration with them. Exchanges in training competition, as well as development of technical knowledge. Now, this will involve exchanging best practices in athlete training, coaching development, as well as sharpening their shared expertise in competition judging and also empowering. You wonder why is this necessary? Because Wushu actually is quite subjective. So how do you do empowering? How do you do judging? Is actually quite an art and quite important. Now, this is just an example, and I just want to share that the example I've highlighted, whether in arts and culture, heritage, museum, sports, they not only strengthen the capabilities of our people, but also in a way open new opportunities for our artists, athletes, and youth to grow, to innovate, and to gain global exposure. While at the same time, as we bring the Peranakan Museum to different cities, help to also share our unique Singaporean identity and values with one another. So really, in essence, we have gone really a long way since 2.5 years ago. We forged very good momentum and in terms of deepening cooperation beyond economics, in arts and culture, in sports, in youth exchange, because we believe that cooperation in this area that goes beyond economic really play a critical role in building trust, understanding and long-term relationship between Singapore and China, and it truly reflects the all-round high-quality, future-oriented partnership. Thank you.